que yo termine con esta introducción, todavía no, pero una vez que yo termine, se va a prender la interpretación. Cuando esté prendida la interpretación, van a ver un globo en la parte de abajo de su ventana de Zoom. Parece un mundo pequeño. Hacen clic en ese globo y luego eligen su idioma. Spanish si quieren la interpretación en español o inglés si lo quieren en inglés. Si no están en sus computadoras, si están en sus teléfonos, no van a ver un globo. Ven 3 puntitos, hacen clic en esos 3 puntitos y luego eligen Language y luego Spanish, lenguaje o idioma y luego español. Si tienen cualquier problema con la interpretación, por favor déjennos saber rápidamente, por video es lo más rápido, y si prefiere lo puede hacer por chat y lo arreglamos lo más rápido posible. Ok, ahora vamos a aprender la interpretación y luego le vamos a dar unos 30 segundos a todos para que puedan elegir su idioma. Ok, we'll turn the interpretation on now. We'll give everybody about 30 seconds to choose their language. Thank you very much.
Okay, by now I hope everybody has been able to select their language. I had to stop my share for a second, so I was able to select mine. So we're going to move on with a little bit of intro to our presentation and our platform today, starting with rules of engagement. Just requesting that you use the chat box and or raise your hand during the Q&A session. We are going to do Q&A a little bit differently today. I will present that in a minute, but also primarily just to be respectful to other meeting participants and to the project team. Obviously, no profanities or inappropriate language. And last, speak slowly. As Manuel said, we have interpretation going on as well, and people it's easier for everybody to understand. So, orientation for the platform of Zoom itself. This is the second public meeting covering these roadways, but the first one was a different platform. So during the meeting, this meeting is being recorded. Please stay on mute. We may have a chance to be able to speak up and unmute, but we're probably going to be doing that through breakout rooms. You are always welcome to put questions in the chat box, and we may either be able to answer those as we're presenting or save those for breakout room discussions at the end, which we're calling Q&A as well. The buttons here show your mic, your mute button, and your video. You're welcome to have it on or off. If you're having bandwidth issues, turn that off and that should help. And then also the chat button as well. Again, just a friendly reminder to be respectful of your neighbors. So before I get to the meeting overview for this 6th and 8th Avenue Bikeway meeting, I wanted to welcome, at least at one point, I saw Councilwoman Torres here. I just wanted to welcome her, thank her for joining us, and thank everybody else for taking time out of your evening as well.
Yeah, I apologize. That was not Councilwoman Torres. This has been one of her.
Yes.
I was clearing our Zoom account earlier and I had forgot to log out. So
well, Ben, thank you for joining us as well.
I am here though. Thanks for thank you, Ben, and and everyone for being here today. Yes.
Great. So a quick overview of what we'll cover tonight and a little bit of a time check so that you get a feeling for how this meeting will go. We're going to do this intro, a little bit of background on the project, background on why we're doing this project. And then once we complete that piece, we're going to get more into the meat of the meeting, which is about 6th and 8th Avenue specifically, going through the project background, proposed design, which you all haven't seen. The last time we presented this, we didn't have the proposed design yet. And then the project schedule. And this 15-minute Q&A discussion, we're going to do via breakout room. If we have a small enough group, we can all do it together, but most likely we'll end up doing that via breakout room, depending on how many people we have at that point. We'll reserve anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes for that breakout room, and then all come back together to discuss and have kind of a next steps or how to contact us, what to expect discussion. And then should have a few minutes at the end where the project team can sit on the line in case anybody has some final questions. So again, many ways to ask your questions. Raise your hand, hold them for the smaller group breakout rooms, or put them in the chat. And we can move from there. Details on how we would do that breakout room if we do it. Breakout room selection is based on if you live in these neighborhoods that the corridor goes through. So number 1, Sun Valley or Villa Park residents. Number 2 is Spanish speakers. And number 3 is those who live outside the neighborhoods listed and aren't interested in the Spanish piece. If you could all right now, please choose one of these breakout room numbers and put your information in the chat right now, and we can pre-assign you so that that's quicker. While we're at it, you can also put your email address in the chat if you'd like to stay in on the communications for this corridor moving forward. So I'm going to give about 15 seconds for everybody to put their information in the chat, their breakout room choice. Great, I see folks are putting their choices in. So you're welcome to continue to do that if you haven't gotten to it this time. And my team can put that selection options in the chat as well. For the neighborhoods is 1, Spanish speakers, number 2, and number 3 is those outside of the neighborhoods. Okay. So moving forward, I just wanted to give you a little introduction to the team that is working on this corridor design. I'm Alicia Zimmerman. I'm the moderator for this meeting. David Pulsifer is the planning lead from what we say DOTI, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So you'll hear reference to DOTI moving on. Gabby is our community designer. Steve is the project manager. Hadar is our engineering lead. And John Hausman is also on the line as our engineering consultant. So this team is hard at work trying to make this corridor what is safest and most comfortable for all you folks in the neighborhood. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to David so that he can talk a little bit about background.
Thanks, Alicia. And thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time and being here. And, you know, I'm looking forward to the time when we can see you in person again and have face-to-face conversations, but glad and appreciative of your time and here tonight. So just want to talk big picture, and we'll go through these rather quickly so that we have lots of time to have one-on-one, you know, to have questions in conversations in the breakout room. But, you know, one of the main reasons we're doing these types of projects is we want to move more people safely in Denver. We know Denver's growing and lots of people are moving here and they're bringing their cars with them. And we just don't have room to fit everyone with all their cars and to make the roads wider. So we have to think about how to move people more efficiently and give people more choice. On top of that, we have very ambitious goals about safer streets in Denver. In 2017, the Denver adopted the Vision Zero Action Plan, which says that by 2030, we don't want to have any serious injuries or fatalities on the roadway. And we want people to feel safe regardless of their transportation choice. So we know that the people who walk and bike and take transit are more prone to being exposed to fatalities and injuries. And so we want to make our streets safer. So this road this project is a part of that goal as well, is providing more choice and safer streets. Also, just some background. Sometimes it's helpful for the community to know how we actually got to this point where we're now having this conversation with you on 6th and 8th. And so, as you know, very quick history, 10 years of history in 30 seconds. But this roadway was actually identified back in 2011 in our first bicycle master plan. And then it was reconfirmed as a valuable connection in 2015. In 2018, you guys might have been involved in the Denverite master plan effort. That was a combination of several planning efforts, but the blueprint transportation land use plan identified this corridor as a bicycle priority corridor. And now that we have an opportunity to actually implement it. So it's taken us a while to get here, but we're really grateful to be close to the finish line. Another question we get is, well, why this street and why now? And you know, one of the reasons we can do these projects is because of street resurfacing and paving. And every year, Denver resurfaces almost 500 miles of roadway every year, and just a very small percentage, about 2% of that are the roads that we actually have identified for a bike project. So this may feel like a big project and can feel like a big change or a big improvement to the neighborhood. And in reality, it's just a small drop in the bucket compared to the large amount of work that the city is doing. So, but it is a good opportunity for us when the road has been resurfaced and it's fresh and clean to put new markings on that are in alignment with the community's needs and our plans. Next slide. So there's lots of different ways in which improvements get built. We talked about the paving plan, but there's lots of different programs for how the city spends its money and allocates its resources. Sometimes it's a maintenance project where we're putting in crosswalks and stop signs, or we have a Safe Routes to School program that focuses on infrastructure connecting to schools. You know, there's lots of different things that the city does. And it's all kind of, we try to bring it all together to best meet the needs of the community. So getting now into West 6th and 8th Avenue. So this is the actual study area you can see in the dotted line there, basically connecting all the way from Knox Court all the way essentially to the South Platte Drive or South Platte River Trail. And there's a lot of benefits about that this connection brings. You can see as you look on the north and the south that there's some existing and proposed connection points. And you know, people on bikes and people walking are just like people in cars. They want to have options and want to be able to get to someplace. And so this route connects to parks, it connects to trails, and gives an ultimate connection to transit as well. So it really provides a multiple of options. And the city does have real challenges with its east-west routes as it approaches the river and I-25. And so these types of connections are very important from that standpoint, and it gets us to existing infrastructure like our trails, like the Weir Gulch Trail and the South Platte River Trail. And Hadar, is this you or is this still me?
This is me.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Hadar. I'm the engineering lead on the city side for this project, and I'm going to be walking us through the existing conditions in the field today. So let's take a look at 6th Avenue. In the field today, we currently have a travel lane in either direction with parking on only the south side. The southern travel lane is 11 feet wide, which is typical with what we see throughout Denver. On the north side, we have no parking and a very wide travel lane, measured at 16 feet. There's a center two-way left turn lane, measured at 11 feet. 6th Avenue also has some large bends in the roadway and grade changes. The posted speed limit on 6th Avenue is 30 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour on school zones. On 8th Ave, there's no parking on either side of the street. There's 2 travel lanes in either direction with a center turn lane in the middle. Each of these streets come in at 10 feet wide, which again is typical with what we see throughout Denver. The posted speed limit on 8th Avenue is 35 miles per hour. Along both of these cross sections today, there's no dedicated space for cyclists. Next slide, please. Before we design a project, we collect as much information as possible regarding the study area. For this project, we have collected speed and volume data, collision history, and parking data. Right now, we're going to be talking about collisions along the corridor. We've collected collision data from 2015 to 2020. During that time frame, there were 237 crashes on the corridor involving vehicles. 2 of those were serious injury crashes. Our graph on the right highlights bicycle and pedestrian-related crashes. Between 2015 and 2020, there have been 3 pedestrian-related collisions and 4 bicycle-related collisions on the corridor. 2 of those pedestrian-related collisions involved a pedestrian being seriously injured. Next slide, please. Next, I'll be discussing the traffic data. As I mentioned, we collected both speed and volume data. So let's take a look at 6th Avenue. There is an average daily traffic, or ADT, of 6,300 vehicles. The posted speed limit is 30 miles per hour. However, measured speeds came in much higher. The 85th percentile speeds in the westbound direction is 44 miles per hour. This means that 85% of westbound traffic travels at or below 44 miles per hour. The 85th percentile in the eastbound direction is 51 miles per hour. As we discussed in the existing cross section, there are hills and bends along this segment, which may help explain these higher speeds that we're seeing. Now, compared to 6th Avenue, 8th Avenue is flat and straight. The speeds seen on 8th Ave are calmer and more representative of the posted 35-mile speed limit. The westbound 85th percentile speed is 40 miles an hour, and the eastbound 85th percentile speed is 35 miles an hour. Average volume along 8th Avenue is 15,800 vehicles, which is more than double the volume we saw on 6th Avenue. On the left-hand side of this presentation slide is the facility selection chart. DOTI uses this chart to determine what type of bicycle facility a corridor needs based on the speeds and volumes experienced on that corridor. Next slide, please. So in addition to collecting speeds and volumes, we also conducted a parking study. The on-street parking along the corridor may be impacted by the design of bike facilities, depending on what the corridor designers think is the best option for this location. To understand the potential ramifications of removing parking along the corridor, a parking study was done in order to document the existing conditions relative to parking availability. 6th Avenue runs adjacent to a residential corridor. For that reason, the parking study was conducted on a weekday morning from 5 to 6 a.m. This is when we expect to see the on-street parking being used at the highest rate. The results of the study are shown in the image. As you can see, the parking occupancy on 6th Avenue is between 0 and 15% occupied, which means that at least 75% of parking is available. We also studied the parking on the side streets off of 6th Avenue. For the majority of these streets, parking was again used at the rate of 0 to 15%, with the exception of 2 streets. Hooker Street showed the highest parking utilization, with 46 to 60% parking used on both sides of that street. Grove Street had 16 to 30% parking utilized. Keep in mind that there are both benefits and challenges to parking removal. And as we discussed, there's no parking today on 8th Avenue, so no parking study was conducted there. Next slide.
We're going to pause for a second at the end of each of these slides so that we can let interpretation catch up as well. Okay, and then we'll turn it over to David to talk through how your feedback to date has informed this project. There you
are. All right. Okay, thank you so much. So the first time we met, we solicited, asked for your feedback and tell us about your experience, and hopefully we can hear more today. But just to kind of briefly summarize what we heard, we received 26 comments total, quite a bit about prioritizing bicyclist safety, general project support, and then this is an important one, improving safety for all. And that's a key component of these projects. Yes, they have a bicycle component to them, but there's traffic calming features and things that improve conditions for pedestrians and for people who drive their car. So we're really pleased to be able to share some of those things with you. And then other general, questions about the corridor and how we can improve. So hopefully we're meeting some of those things today. Next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so what we did, we heard a lot of people talk about vertical protection for bike lanes. And so that kind of, that can be like a little technical or jargony, but that typically means that people want something that sticks up out of the ground to protect them from a car and while they're on their bike. And the city has specific parameters for when we install those types of things. So maybe we can get into that in some of the Q&A. As we mentioned earlier, general support, because the city does have strong needs for east-west connections, and also safety education campaigns for drivers and cyclists. So we actually do have some of those things in the works. So I'm glad that that we are being able to meet the community's intent. Next slide. So just kind of to picture what we heard, this shows it in picture form. Wide streets that are that don't have what we'd say friction on them. So maybe there's not a lot of parked cars, or the lanes are wide, is very conducive to speeding. And the more prevalent speeding, the more frequently there are safety issues. So this project can help address narrowing lanes and make it more difficult to speed. And then that improves safety for all users, and also improves the experience at the intersection crossing. The slower people are going, the more reaction time they have to slow down and stop at an intersection, as well as do some improvements there. And there was one comment about parking, and we can address that. In order to install this project, we did have to remove parking, and the parking utilization was very low on this stretch, and this was seen as a good trade-off to be able to provide safety and a better mobility for bicyclists and pedestrians in exchange for a very lowly utilized parking. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, just kind of making those connections. So, and these are the things we heard, and then this is how we responded to them. So protected bike lane, painted bike lanes, they provide physical space, which helps people, encourage people to make more trips by bike. Typically what the city has done in the past is, trying to connect the network and, focusing on infrastructure for people who are already riding their bike, but the city is interested in helping more people ride their bike who don't currently feel comfortable in doing that. So in order to do that, we have to do better infrastructure that's more closely connected to each other, that's a better network, provides connectivity to trails and in our parks. So this project helps address that. Visually narrowing wide lanes also, as mentioned earlier, helps slow down. So that will help the experience on this roadway. And we will be doing enhanced crossing markings. And we know that most conflict comes at intersections. And so more deliberate interactions and with each other happen.
Oh, David, I think we lost you. Somebody else on the team, let us know if you can hear David.
No, he disappeared.
Okay. Okay, Hadar, maybe you can pick up until we get David back here.
I
Yes.
just readmitted him.
Okay, great.
Hi, sorry about that. Just switching over to my phone here. So in wrapping up, this project, in order to get it and provide better connectivity, we did have to remove parking. Next slide, please. So is this still me or is this Hadar?
Nope, it's you.
This is you,
Okay.
David.
You until Q&A. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. So this is what we would call a cross section. So it's like, cutting the street in half and how it would look today. Hadar talked about what the street looks like now. And so now what we will have is a designated space for bicyclists on either side with a travel lane. And we, in some places, we were able to maintain one side of parking. Next slide. And this is our proposed cross section of 8th Avenue. So 8th Avenue is definitely a challenge for us. We talked about this a lot as a project team, and there are some greater infrastructure needs here. The traffic signals need to be upgraded. There is some commercial traffic here and some driveway issues, just a lot of challenges. So we do foresee that at some point this corridor will be part of a larger capital program, but in the project. But in the meantime, we are going to be doing maintaining the 4 travel lanes and then putting a 5-foot bike lane on either side of the road. So another thing that we are going to do is, a standard bike lane is our baseline facility, but realize that some people might not want to be on that. So what we are also doing as part of this project is providing wayfinding to help bicyclists get to the Weir Gulch Trail. Denver is so fortunate to have a really great trail network. And, the Weir Gulch Trail then feeds into the South Platte, which connects to Cherry Creek. So, the trail facility is a great experience you can have as a pedestrian or as a bicyclist. So, so this provides some options for bicyclists and people who don't want to be on 8th to divert to the Weir Gulch Trail. At the intersections, as mentioned, we'll be doing some striping and to make the crossings a better experience, also providing striping for bicyclists to help give them priority and prominence as they cross through the intersection. Next slide. In some instances, we did have to, we're utilizing a sharrow. Sharrow is a shorthand term for shared lane marking. And a sharrow is basically a short-term, short distance striping condition we use when we're trying to connect 2 facilities, but don't have room for something to our standard. So it's not something that we like to do over the extensive long corridors, but in short distances, it helps position bicyclists in a safe position on the road so that people and vehicles have to, change lanes to pass them so that everyone operates as safely as possible. Next slide, please. We did also want to note that in some stretches where we're doing the vertical protection, we did account for the driveways so that there will be that we're not impacting the driveway access along 6th Avenue. Next slide. Yep, just a continuation of the theme, again, showing how we've accommodated for the driveways that will still allow access for people to access the driveways and still have a protected facility. And just to kind of show you where we are, we showed you several timelines. It's taken us almost 10 years to get here, but we met with you in March to introduce the project, and now we're here to show you our design intent, to get your feedback on the design, see if there's anything else we can include or what we may have missed, and with a potential install for the summer of this year. So very exciting.
Okay, thank you, David.
Sure.
I think I saw most people were able to put which breakout room they'd like to be in the chat. And it looks like with everyone so far, we're either breakout room 1 or 3. So I think that'll probably give us a good sized group in each room. So I see one more was added to one. If you haven't put your breakout room number in here yet, please add it to the chat. And Lucy and Caroline, do we have everybody collated?
I think we're close.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll start the room.
So in just a second, everybody's gonna disappear into a breakout room and have a chat. It's just going to be an open, everybody off mute discussion where Q&A is possible. And in each room, one of the team members will take notes, and we'll all come back together in a few minutes and report back on what the questions were, what the answers were, and catch back up with each other. So you can I think there might be a box that pops up, but you should automatically be pushed. Give you 30 seconds, then we're going to do 1 minute of reporting each and 1 minute of closeout, and I'll get you out of here 2 minutes late. Okay, I think we're back. Everybody's back in. Okay. So I was just saying, if you can select your language, English or Spanish language again. And then we'll keep moving. So a quick report from room 3. I think we only had 3 and 1, but the 2 main concerns that we had there were how it coordinates with the 8th Avenue Bridge reconstruction and routing. And the second one was about whether 8th Avenue portion is really going to be comfortable enough to make it so that everybody can ride there, or even more comfortable people can ride there. And the answers given were basically that the 8th Avenue Bridge reconstruction is, Gabby, correct us if we're wrong here, but is going to be later this year. Okay, and for a few years, is that right?
Yes, so 8th Avenue Bridge, this is the bridge that actually goes over the Platte, not the really big one that goes over the railroad tracks. That one, the construction will start this September, and it will be 2 construction seasons. So basically low flow seasons. So from 2021 until 2023, we should expect traffic to be rerouted. And just to let folks, because I wasn't sure which breakout room I was in, that one, it's, obviously rebuilding the bridge because it is, it's one of our oldest bridges and it has a lot of issues. But on the bridge itself, we are reconstructing it. So it's actually 10-foot sidewalks on each side of the bridge and stronger connections to the trail itself.
Great, thank you. And the general response we gave on the question of whether the 8th Avenue bike lanes widths are adequate enough to make everybody who would like to ride there comfortable was that they're tight. They're probably not going to make everybody comfortable, but the city is working at alternatives. They're just not really within the bike lane paving scope. So city is going to continue to look at that section and the connection over to further east all the way across that railroad where there's already a shared use path. Okay, that's room 3. Room 1.
Is that us, Gabby? I think we were room 1. Yeah, so we heard similar questions about what will the facility on the bridge look like? Questions with, with the 8th Avenue Bridge and some timelines there. Questions about using not the Weir Gulch just as an alternative to 8th, preferences for being on the trail. And then some questions about the vertical separation. And then also some feedback about making sure that we touch base with the properties, the commercial properties along 8th Avenue, and make sure those stakeholders and businesses are engaged in the process so that they know what's going on and that their operations are being considered in the design.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for participating in those. That seemed to be really helpful, a little bit easier to discuss. I'm going to quick screen share the last bit here, just our last slide. Wanted to go through next steps here. The ways, this is the last time you're going to see the DOTI team in a public meeting setting on this specific project. But if you want to continue to stay involved or ask additional questions, feel free to visit the project website at bit.ly/Denver Bike Paving, bit.ly/Denver Bike Paving. And there you can find a link to office hours if you'd like to talk one-on-one and some more information on the project. Installation schedule for this one, as David mentioned, is tentative for summer of 2021. And that won't come in without, especially those along the corridor being notified. We do send flyers or mailers to those immediately touching the corridor. So you should see those if you live immediately adjacent to the corridor. And you're always welcome to contact us at bikes@denvergov.org, bikes@denvergov.org, and just include 6/8 in the subject because a lot of emails come into that. And similarly, there's a project hotline phone number I'll give you where you can leave your name and comment, including 6th and 8th, and whether or not you'd like somebody to call you back. The hotline number is 303-223-6575. 303-223-6575. And I said that was the last slide, but our closing slide does have a bit.ly link for a meeting survey, is almost like customer service, asking you all how you think we could improve these meeting processes. So if you can do that, if you can take this survey right now, that would be amazing. Survey is closed almost immediately after the meeting. So it's really just feedback on this meeting format. bit.ly/6th/8th meeting survey. And that's the number 6th, 8th meeting survey. And with that, David, unless you have anything to add, we'd like to thank you for participating tonight and for giving us your feedback, and looking forward to seeing you all out there on the corridor.